best investment you can make is in yourself and in other people. Be grateful for what you have now, and more abundance will flow to you. Write your gratitudes every day. Write them in here every single day. If you want more, be grateful for what you have.
I truly believe this quote. If you help enough people get what they want, you will eventually get what you want.
And Glenn was a gentleman who had a passion, a burning desire to do something great and to do something that's right and ethical in the real estate industry, to make a difference in people's lives for generations. He was tired of things that he saw. He didn't like the way people were being treated, transactionally versus relationally, and he wanted to make a difference. And what he did was, that day when I saw Glenn was Stewart, I thought, wow. But you know what was really interesting? As Glenn was drawing things out on a napkin and a piece of paper, there was a little voice inside my head. And it was Frank McGuire, my mentor, saying, Darren, are you paying attention? Are you paying attention? And at that moment, I realized Frank McGuire sat at a table with Colonel Sanders. He was going to disrupt the fast food industry by selling chicken in a cardboard box. My mentor, Frank McGuire, was at the table with Fred Smith, who was going to create a little company called Federal Express and disrupt the courier and postal service. And here's a gentleman in front of me who said he's going to evolution and change the real estate industry. So that day I went away. I wrote down 73 people's names that I was going to reach out and have conversations with to do a deeper dive of due diligence and discovery. All 73 people told me, that's a great guy, this Glenn guy's a great guy, but what he's doing isn't going to work because you're competing against the biggest companies, the biggest brands with the deepest financial pockets who've been around for decades. You're going nowhere fast. Great idea. It's fly by night, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. And so I had 73 people reject me and said, no, don't get involved, don't do this. You're going to regret it. It's going to be a black eye in what you do. This is in 2013. 2013. Over the next several months, we went back and forth with Glenn Sanford, got to know the gentleman, and when you realize his servant heart of how he really likes people, wants to make a difference, wants to do what's right, it changes your mindset. And so I went for a walk in North Vancouver at Rice Lake, Lynn Valley, and my gut said, follow your gut. What's the little voice say? Are you paying attention? And I came back, and Glenn and I started to meet a lot more. And in 2014, I joined the board of directors as an independent director. There was Jason Gessing, who's our EXP CEO, Glenn Sanford, and myself, and we would meet. Small little group of us of a couple of people. There's more people here today than when I joined EXP. Think about that. Timing of an opportunity. And I remember talking to Frank McGuire. I said, Frank, here's this idea about this gentleman who's doing something with the real estate industry. He says, are you paying attention, Darren? Are you paying attention? And so it's really interesting, the journey that we've been on here since 2014, 2015, 2016 to where we are today with 78,000 agents in 20 countries. And just last fall, publicly declared we're going to go to 500,000 agents globally. Some of you feel you've missed the boat. I look at my life of where I was in 2013, and when I made that phone call to Frank McGuire and said, am I at the right place at the right time with the right people, with the right opportunity? And he said, Darren, are you paying attention? This gentleman, Glenn Sanford, had a vision. It has a big vision to this day. And he said to me one day, he says, we're going to go to NASDAQ. So I went to people, and we're talking about this, and they're like, you're not going to go to NASDAQ. You're never going to do any of that. It's crazy. You're crazy. And I always remember selling chicken in a cardboard box, delivering packages overnight. And so when you look at this, you realize that your life can change. This is us at NASDAQ, one of the photos of us in NASDAQ. It was a defining moment. So here's what I'd like you to do. Everyone, please stand up. Just shake your bodies out. I'd like you to put your hands on your chest for a moment. Taking a deep breath. Exhale. I'd like you to close your eyes. And what I'd like you to say is I'd like you to repeat after me. My success is someone else's miracle. My success is someone else's miracle. My success is someone else's miracle. It has been an absolute pleasure for you to be here today. It's an absolute pleasure for me to be here today as well with you. Welcome to the eXp Global family. It's my honor to serve you. Thank you.
I started as a realtor 20 years ago this month, April 29th, 2020. I was actually in Birch Bay, Washington. I had a website, birchbay.net, and at the time, I was between sort of what I was going to do in my professional career. I was in 1998, I wrote a business plan, met some guys downtown Vancouver in 99 for a company called eShippers.com. We raised a couple $1 million for the company. My business partner at the time, he liked to play golf more than he actually wanted us to run a business, so we ended up setting up shop in Phoenix, Arizona, as opposed to St. Louis, Missouri, which doesn't sound like an exciting place to be. I'm kind of glad we went to Phoenix, but the business should have been operated there. But anyway, the long story short, .com collapse happened, 2000 happened, and I was $40,000 more in debt in 2001 going into 2002 than before I went to start that business. My daughters reminded me, we were just in the UK last week, and they reminded me that we were actually on food stamps. I actually didn't remember that. My ex protected me from that information, but that was, we were kind of struggling at the time back in 2002. But at the same time, I had a website. I was selling some advertising and doing some website development work. And one of the people that I actually went to sell an ad to was a realtor, and his name was Hugh Brawford. Hugh said, "Glenn, you're a pretty sharp guy. You should get your real estate license." And I'd been a little bit around the real estate industry. I'd tried to actually sell domain names to some real estate brokerages back in 1997 because I thought the internet was going to be kind of a big deal in real estate. I think it was. I think it's proven out to be pretty big deal. But in 2002, he asked me to get my real estate license. I'm like, well, nobody really makes money in the business. At least that was my perception at the time. And he asked me what would it take to be in the real estate business, and I said, I don't know, guarantee me $3,000 a month. And I thought he was going to say no. I was hoping he was going to say no, and he said fine, and I was going crap. I said, okay, well, if I'm going to get into real estate, I don't want to do all the normal realtor stuff. I didn't want to wear my realtor pin at the grocery store. I didn't want to cost my friends and family. I just wanted to build the business online, and if it worked, it worked. If it didn't, it didn't. And he said, fine, fine, fine. And I was like, crap. And then about 30 days later, he asked me why I didn't have my license, because in the US it's actually pretty easy to get your license, 60 hours, you can do it online. You go take a test, and the test is kind of tough, but the studying isn't, you can knock it out fairly fast. So I said, well, Hugh, I get paid $60 an hour to do website development work. So I've been doing that. And he actually paid me $60 an hour to get my real estate license to actually study for my exam. So real estate kind of chose me in some respects as opposed to me choosing real estate. But one of the cool things about that is actually created some business constraints for me, because I'd already told him all the stuff I wasn't going to do. I was going to focus really on the internet side of things. I already had these websites. I had birchbay.net, blaine.net, ferndale.net, whatcomcounty.net. Eventually I bought bellingham.net. And so I ended up building all these presences out back in 2002, 2003, and started to generate a lot of online leads. And that's really where I focused. And so in 2002, Rookie of the Year at the office I was at, even though I was on his team, he guaranteed me $3,000 a month, which basically meant if I made less than $3,000, he'd pay me the difference. But for the next 2 years, I gave him 30% of everything I generated. So I'm not sure how good a deal it really was. It was a great deal for him, but it was a good deal. It got me in the industry. But Rookie of the Year, first full year, I was the #1 buyer's agent in the office. It was Prudential office at the time, and number 3 overall. And in 2004, I was generating leads actually in other markets, and so I was trying to figure out how to actually build a real estate team. And so At the time, I read a book. Many of you, how many have read the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book? Okay, yeah, it's probably still the best formative book on actually how to run your real estate business as a business, as opposed to having a business that runs you. And it's a pretty big contrast between the two, and if you haven't read the book, or you don't really feel like you've got control of your business yet, it's a great book to read because it really does help you sort of reshape the way that you think about the business. So I read the book, I went to Keller Williams, started a team. I was a glutton for punishment. I actually started 5 additional teams over the next 2 years, which helped me hit that $60 million in production in 2006. And I really liked the Keller Williams model. So I thought the model made a ton of sense. They had their profit share model. And so I figured I've got a team, I'm recruiting agents. Those agents are going to join Keller Williams. I'm going to build sort of a profit share business. And that was my business plan, and that was how I was going to create financial freedom for me and my family. Running a team, as many of you know, is a lot of times if you really want to make money, just stay an individual agent. I mean, how many of you would sort of agree with that in some respects? So I heard the thing about leverage. You need to build a team, and then I started to figure out a lot of the things for me that didn't work. One, if I wasn't active in the team would sort of implode and wouldn't work very well. 2 teams worked really well, Bellingham, Washington, and Phoenix, Arizona. Those are 2 places I like to spend time. In the winter, I was in Phoenix, and the summer, I was in Bellingham, Washington. And so those teams did well, but I had teams in Nashville, Seattle, which wasn't very far away, but an hour and a half or an hour and 45 to go and coach a team. It's kind of a pain when you try to do that in a day. That's 3-4 hours driving just to go coach your team. So I didn't go to Seattle very often, so the Seattle team really didn't do phenomenal. Team Las Vegas, Nashville, Long Beach, California, Portland, Oregon. And they all did reasonably well. We generated leads and all that. But 2007, I decided to go independent. And part of it was because, for me, the profit share system didn't work for me. And it was nothing against Keller Williams. It just, for me, I'd paid about $115,000 in one office for my team. And I got a whopping $6,000 in profit share. So that sort of was a pain point for me. And so 2007 went independent. In 2007, did about $73 million in production with our combined team. 2008, we were on track to do about $100 million in production. We had 4 offices, Bellingham, Seattle, Portland, and Phoenix, Arizona. We still ran satellite teams in the Keller system, but we had our primary teams that we were running. And when 2008 happened, we had to close 3 of our offices fairly quickly. And we went to a skeleton crew on the 4th office, and we had to actually raise $150,000 to get from 2008 to 2009. Now, we had a bunch of websites at the time, in fact, including a site up here in Vancouver. It was actually Vancouver Power Search, and we were actually generating leads up here. So we were doing lots of lead gen all over the place. But we actually had to borrow money against some of our websites to secure some of that $150,000 to get to 2009. And in February of 2009, a bunch of us got together, and we were trying to strategize what we were going to do next. And I had an agent that was on the team. She was actually from Seattle, and she asked the question, when do we get our offices back? And I literally said to her at the time, I said, we're not getting our offices back. We need to develop a defensible business model that's not dependent on bricks and mortar. And I said it really to shut her down, but then I'm like, that's a pretty good idea. Everybody's been talking about in 2000, who was in the business in 2004, 5, 6, 7, 8? How many of you heard that the future of real estate would be in coffee shops and you'd be very mobile as a real estate professional? Like, that was actually a thing. People talk about it, but nobody had done it. But I'm like going, well, why don't we do it? We said, that seems like a good idea. So from February through about June, July, we started to pencil out what we thought the real estate brokers of the future looked like. And we really did it from one single perspective, and that perspective was, what would the real estate brokerage need to look like for me to want to build my business there and be a lifer? And we literally said, we looked at all the models. We looked at Remax, we looked at Keller, we looked at Prudential, we looked at Exit, we looked at all these models. We laid them all side by side, and we said, what could it look like? And then, if we didn't have bricks and mortar, what could we do differently? And we said, we could actually create a revenue share model that would actually reward agents for growing the brokerage that could be meaningful. And we did the math on it, said, this looks pretty good. It looks like it could pencil. And of course, we're entrepreneurs, and hopefully everybody in this room is an entrepreneur, which means that at your heart, you're an optimist, which means that, but at some point you're actually a realist, so you're like, it's a really great idea, but we don't know if it's going to work. So, but we decided, hey, this revenue share thing could really work. And then we said, how do you build collaboration and community if you don't have physical offices? And there was actually an agent that stopped by my house back then and asked what the future of real estate looked like. And I just spouted off, well, eventually you're going to go to an office from anywhere, you'll be able to meet with your broker, you'll be able to do paperwork, and you'll just kind of just walk into their office. So I was just imagining an avatar. Back then it was Second Life. I was going, that was kind of the thing, the metaverse. And we were like, that's a cool idea, let's do that. So that's what we did. October 6, 2009, we launched with 25 agents. And I told the team, I sent everybody home with their computers. We literally said, we're not going to an office. And I said to the team, this either works or it doesn't work, and if it doesn't work, we're gonna go look for work. So that was really kind of the formative statement. We burnt the boats at the beach. We were going for it, and we couldn't afford to fail. I mean, we all, the market sucked. There was a lot of stuff that was going wrong in 2009, but we were gonna go for it. And so, I was out there pitching every day, having the same types of conversations that, many agents here in the room are having, talking about the future of real estate and the benefits of a cloud-based brokerage. We didn't call it cloud-based then, we call it the world's first fully immersive Web 3.0 real estate brokerage. But we figured that cloud's way simpler. So we went with that a few years later. And then in 2012, another local guy here, anybody went to a T. Harv Eker course over the years? Okay, so I think he was a Squamish guy or Vancouver guy or something, North Van. I went to one of his courses in 2012, and it was actually in Denver. It's the first time I ever went. In the middle of his course, probably about the second day in, it's a 3-day deal, I was like, I'm not thinking big enough. And the rev share thing was doing great. We were growing about 50% year over year, but 25 agents growing by 50% is only like 40 agents, So we didn't grow from 2009 to 2010. By 2012, we're like 200 agents. But I was thinking, how do I think bigger? And one thing that always eluded me at every brokerage I was at prior, Prudential and Keller, was I wasn't an owner. I actually went both times and said, how do I become an owner in the office? And Prudential, they didn't offer me any ownership. There was really 2 guys that owned it. They didn't want to share at all. They should have. I might have stayed there a little longer. And then Keller Williams, they offered me 1%, and then I read the franchise agreement. And if you read the franchise agreement that you have to agree to for the 1% interest, you'd never want to own a piece of the franchise because you can't actually compete with them for like 2 years after you sell your last remaining interest. So I was like, I'm not signing that. So, but I thought that would be something that would be really meaningful. So, as Darren mentioned, a mutual friend of ours, Stuart Gray in Kelowna, he and I had been buddies back in the mid '90s, and we'd stayed in touch over the years. And I described the business model, and he had done some stuff with public companies, and I'd done some stuff with public companies as well back in the early '90s, and so we decided to purchase a public company to actually roll ourselves into, to actually be able to distribute shares of EXP to our agents. And so we did that. We did that in 2013. We became a public company at the end of 2013. And 2014, we started our agent ownership initiatives at effectively about a net 25 cents a share. So the first people that got first Icon Awards, the first awards, were around 25, 30 cents a share after our stock split. We were about 50 cents at the time. We've split since then, so it's about a net 20, 25 cents a share. And then the company really started to take off. 2015, after we rolled out those agent ownership initiatives, was the first year we grew over 100%. Now, if you've ever grown a business at 50%, it can be a little bit challenging just to keep up with 50% year over year growth. You start growing over 100%, since there's been some swearing already, it was my oh shit moment. Okay, so it was, it literally, we were, Debbie, my significant other, and I, we were traveling by motor coach around the country. We'd been doing that from June through the end of the year, and we actually didn't have a house to go to back home to because we wanted to kind of test this theory. Could you run a company without actually having a house? We've already proven you don't need an office. Do you need a house to actually build something? So we actually did this out of a motor coach, and in December, we had went from 400 to 860, I think, in agents, and the wheels were starting to come off the wagon a little bit. So it was like, we got to professionalize. We start hiring people. You know, if somebody's, you used to work for Microsoft, you're in. You used to be VP of some brokerage over there, you're in. And so we started to sort of cobble these people that actually could professionalize the business. And in 2016, we went from 800 to 2,400. So we even grew faster than that. Some of you may have been around, I'm not sure. But there was a point in 2017 that it took 2 weeks to get paid and over a month to actually join the company. So, I mean, it was there was so much demand, people coming in, and agents weren't leaving. Like, even though agents weren't getting paid, some maybe over 2 weeks, maybe been through, how long was it? It was a while. So the systems were breaking down left and right, but we kept on plowing through. 2017, 2018, finally by about 2019, things started to level out. It started to get, I wasn't pulling my hair out. I've grown this all back, by the way. I was bald, I wasn't, but but it was really, it grew like crazy there for that period of time in a way that we just had to really build systems and processes. We went into all 50 states. We're now in 21 countries, 78,000 agents. We just opened up Greece last week. I think we're getting ready to open up. Oh yeah, there you go. Anybody from New Zealand? We're getting ready to open up New Zealand in the next week or two, and so we've got, the company is just growing like crazy. But the cool thing about this model is it really solved for me, and I always put the agent hat on. The reality is that as an agent, I struggled with the idea of actually owning a business in the real estate industry. I was sold the idea that I owned a business when I was an agent. How many of you were sold the idea that you own a business when you get your real estate license? Okay. If you own a business, it means that it can run without you. How many, if you got hit by a bus, would that business continue to run without you? So you really didn't own a business. You had a business that owned you, and so that was the next thing. Of course, popularized in that early mid-2000s was start a team. Craig Proctor, of course, in Toronto really was probably the first guy that really popularized team building, and in a major way, at least in the sort of modern real estate era. And but what you find is that it's a tough gig to start a team. There's a lot of systems, there's a lot of learning, there's a lot of sort of all this other stuff, and if you're not involved, it starts to go down. So there was this whole idea of building a company to the 7th level. That was a Keller Williams term, where you could actually step out of the business. And very, very few agents could ever step out of the business. They had to stay actively involved. And so that really meant that you really still didn't own a business. You had a business that owned you. And so the next thing, of course, is you need to own a brokerage. So that's, of course, the next sort of thing. And how many understand that the reason why managing brokers are called brokers is because they usually become broker when they actually run a real estate brokerage. So it's true. You talk to broker owners, especially right now things are going well, but when things level out, their bricks and mortar costs are probably not going down. Their income will go down, and during this upturn, they probably reduced their splits, their caps. They've made it more competitive because they want to keep agents. And then when things level out, it gets really tough for a broker owner. We saw this in 2006, 7, 8, 9, and we'll probably see this in the next 2 or 3 years again, where we'll see brokers really struggle again. And so I wanted to solve all these things for me, but I also wanted to solve it for everybody else at the same time. And so that was really the idea of building EXP, was to actually build a platform where you could build your personal practice, build your real estate brokerage, and at the same time earn benefits for your lifetime benefits for helping the company grow. So by helping add agents and brokers and all that. And so that's why I think there was a slide up there, eXp has been the fastest growing real estate brokers in the history of residential real estate. There hasn't been a company that's grown as fast as we have. It was not something I expected. It was something that we strived for. It was an aspirational goal. A lot of times, there's a lot of times that we have aspirational goals. I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that. And we kind of go, yeah, it's a great idea. It's something to strive for. I don't think I'll ever make it, but I'll use that. So it might be weight, it might be relationships, it might whatever. And so ours was like, we want to be the fastest growing, but that was aspirational. We didn't think it was going to happen. We didn't even believe that we would get to 20, 30,000 agents might be. I'd mentioned at one time, I think in 2012, we thought that maybe 50,000 agents would get this model. Like that was in my mind the biggest that we get. Now we're talking about 500,000 agents in the next 5 years, with over half of those being international. Now we're in 20 odd countries, and we'll add another 5 or so this year, maybe more. We'll add another probably 10 next year. And so as we continue to grow, we're changing agents' lives all over the world. And one of the other cool things that I found, I was just in the UK last week, is agents aren't any different anywhere in the world. They can be estate agents in the UK or South Africa or Australia or agents in Mexico or in India or France, and they all have the exact same challenge. They're basically independent contractors that have to go out and find buyers and find listings. And they really have no safety net in that business. If something happens to them and they're the major breadwinner in their family's in trouble. And that's a pretty ubiquitous. It's actually one of the reasons why it's very frustrating, I think, for a lot of agents to be in the business, because the business pays pretty well when you do a deal. Everybody agree? It's a and so as a result, we stay in the business, but it's also one of the most emotionally challenging business to be in. Keeping the buyers on track, keeping your sellers on track, keeping your relationships on track while you're out there showing and listing properties, which is usually done at the most inconvenient times for your family. So at some level, we want to figure out a way to actually get off of the hamster wheel, so to speak, in real estate, or at least have a little bit of a breather in this business. So be able to sort of buy some time back in our business. And so I talked about this about a month or so ago. There was an event, Brent Gove, many of you know, he did an event in Cabo, San Lucas. And by the way, this is not an EXP Realty event. This is an agent-led event. This is I'm not sure that EXP even did.
Vancouver Masterminds.
Vancouver Masterminds. So these events it's really interesting because we're actually building a unique model where agents benefit from growing the brokerage. Agents actually are doing masterminds all over the world because the model sort of leads into the ability to sort of give back and help other agents succeed. There was an analogy that I talked about in Cabo, which I thought was a really powerful analogy that really hit home for me, and it was anybody hear about the mouse experiment where you drown mice in water? No, we don't, but the experimenters do. Have anybody heard about that experiment? So it was in the news here, but got popularized probably about 2 or 3 months ago, and I read the study, and it's if you take mice and don't do this, but if you could, but don't. But if you take mice and you put them into water and you let them swim or die, it takes about 15 minutes before they drown. And they've done that study back in the 50s. I don't know if they've done this study, but my guess is that it probably still is the case. But if they took the mouse out just before the 15 minutes was up and they dried them off, gave them a little love, and then put them back in the water, what happened was that the mice would actually live for, I think it was something like 60 hours. And the reason why the reason why this really struck with me is it's hope. It's and you think about real estate, it can be a grind if you don't have hope. there's a lot of people, real estate, 80% of agents that are in the business today won't be in the business 5 years from now. It's a great business. We already agreed that you can make good money, but it's emotionally draining. And we recognize, I think, at the end of the day, that if something happens to us, we may not have taken care of the most important people in our lives, and that's our loved ones. And so what EXP does is it provides this next level of hope for agents that, hey, what happens if you've got an extra $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 a month coming in passive income? What happens if 4 or 5 years from now, and we've had this happen many times already, there's lots of stories around it, where an agent is financially a little bit stuck. Even at EXP, they haven't done any of their agent attraction side, they haven't recruited, but they opted into our stock comp plan, and somebody says, have you checked on your stock? And they open up and they might have $300,000 or $400,000 worth of stock there that's actually tradable in their account that literally saves the day. And these things, these stories I hear over and over again. If people will tag me on Facebook and they'll do different things. And so the idea is that, here's a business that you can be a part of that, if you apply yourself and you participate in it, there might be something there beyond just your efforts of listing and selling real estate. And that's the magic of it. That's the hope. We have a lot of people that have done really, really well with it. I've certainly, they've got that whole billionaire thing up there. By the way, the stock went down a little bit, so I'm no longer a billionaire. Just wanted to let you know. So it's false advertising, but I don't do this I really don't do this for the money. I do it because it makes such an impact in so many different people's lives. That's why I love this. I have a fairly simple lifestyle, quite frankly, but I love what we're building together. We're all owners. We're all part of this mission to kind of change the real estate industry, and and it's pretty cool. So. With that, I think I'm just going to turn it back over, but thank you very much for having me up here.
Hello, I'm Melissa Wu from eXp Realty. I joined eXp December of 2019 and has transformed my life in many ways, giving me personal time, agent equity, and ownership of the company.
Hi, I'm Juliana Valley, and I've been with eXp for 3 years now. It's changed my life. It's given me more time with my family. I've been able to do more in less time. And it's just amazing training and just amazing people.
My name is Alex Thunder. I'm a content creator with 3.7 million followers, and I love real estate. What I love about eXp is not just the real estate itself, it's their ability to innovate and create and lead technology with Verbella, with Metaverse, with VR. They're willing to do what other people aren't willing to do to lead people into the future.